trickier to forecast what's going to happen in 2024. I think it's a little bit more difficult coming into this year to say that things are going to go well or not so well, to say that maybe things will go well at the beginning of the year, maybe not as well in the second half, or vice versa. And I think that's the case for two reasons. Number one, interest rates. We know now that interest rates aren't going to rise anymore, although the Bank of Canada and Federal Reserve still maintain they're data dependent. But for the most part, they've now indicated that interest rate hikes are pretty much a thing of the past, that we're pretty much reached peak interest rates. So now the question becomes, when will interest rates be cut? When will we see a reduction in interest rates? And we've seen predictions from the first quarter of this year, March, to the second quarter, maybe somewhere around June, to the second half of the upcoming year. And I think that is going to play a factor into how difficult it is to understand or to predict what's going to happen in the stock market, because we know that the higher the interest rates, the more the stock market struggles, especially interest rate sensitive areas. I also think it's difficult to predict what's going to happen this upcoming year because of how we entered 2024. 2024, we entered this year on a high note. The Dow Jones was at all-time highs, the S&P 500 near all-time highs, the TSX grew by almost double digits just in the last couple of months alone. So we came into this year on a high note. So can we continue to maintain that level of growth, or will we see a bit of a pullback? And I have a couple of charts here that discusses this, or that shows this quite well. The first one is the S&P 500. And you can clearly see that when we entered into 2023, we weren't at the bottom, but we were just off the bottom. So going into 2023, if you were someone that wanted to be a bit of a contrarian, as I've said on many shows prior to this, you would have been purchasing the NASDAQ or tech stocks, and the S&P 500, which is dominated by technology and tech stocks as well. You would have been buying the market because the market was coming in very cheaply. Well, take a look at where we're entering 2024, and you'll notice that we are pretty much back to our all-time highs that we reached back in I guess in 2021, end of 2021. So as an investor, it's more difficult to buy into this market and to believe that this market can continue to move higher if we're buying in or if we're at all-time highs or pretty close to all-time highs. We have another chart here which clearly shows the same thing again, and this is the NASDAQ. And again, you can see that, no, we're not at all-time highs, but we entered into 2024 pretty close to all-time highs. And so for individual investors, analysts, market experts, investment advisors like myself, it becomes a little bit more difficult, when you dust off that crystal ball to figure out, what's going to happen in 2024. How high can these markets go? And I think overall, most people believe the markets will go higher, but it is difficult to say how much, when, etc. And I think, again, to me, it's all about being a contrarian, as I've said many times, buying things on the dips, if they're good quality investments. Well, as you can see, coming into 2024, there weren't as many things that you could buy at low points or on the dips. The indices were near all-time highs. So to me, that to me makes it a little bit trickier to be able to predict or call or make calls on this upcoming year.